test. There we go, it's working. Right then, get your hat on back to front. Have a bit of a jaunty angle of mine. Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Christmas special, sponsored by me. And also Rob's salary, I guess.
Yes, indeed.
Sponsored by us. This is a Christmas special. There are no other sponsors apart from Studio Access, which is basically where we teach all the stuff that YouTube just is going to hurt me for putting it on YouTube. You know, the in-depth, detailed bits and pieces. We'll pop a link down below, but that's what this episode's about. This episode is tying up all of those questions that you guys have. And I'm joined once again by Rob.
Hello.
And we are, I don't know if you're allowed to drink on YouTube. We'll soon find out. But we're on the pop.
We are. We're not, for once, sponsored by Fanta Lemon.
No, Fanta Lemon are very much all. Do you know what? Fanta owe me a lot of money. But no, today we've gone Belgium, which could be a mixed bag. And I think the party hats are going to have to come off because it's going to ruin my beard for the rest of the day. But there we go. What have you been up to, Rob? What's new?
Shooting a music video this week for a band called Jacuzzi Soup.
That's a brilliant band name.
I know, right?
What's the video? What sort of video are you going to
just a highlight reel. They're a function band.
Oh, cool. I used to do those with you, didn't we?
You did, yeah.
I liked doing the function bands. They were good to work with.
That's one of the things how I cut my teeth was assisting you on those.
Yeah. Got to get the function bands going. That was always good.
And the thing you'll find, and this is a hot tip for anybody looking to get into sort of videography and what have you, it's very difficult to find people that willing to sort of at the low end. A lot of musicians don't get paid anything like the amount of money they do for doing gigs these days, and trying to find someone to pay you to shoot their gigs and what have you is quite a difficult ask most of the time. Yes. Function bands, however, are the ones that have realised that they need something they have to send to promoters and say, look, this is what we do. Here's a range of the different kind of songs, the different genres of music we can play. Go book us. Function bands are absolutely willing to invest in their own work, really.
Yeah, that's what I found back then as well. And it wasn't just they're willing to invest. They also turned up on time.
Oh, and turned up and were drilled.
Yes, quite. Or you might swing your mic in a little bit there, Rob. I think it might just be my headphones. I don't know. Cutting in and out. But yes, anything else? Anything else of interest? Or is that your...
No, I've spent most of my week in the fourth dimension.
Fun times.
Full on 3D, full week of 3D rendering and such.
Amazing. So we've got a whole host of topics here. Questions for you and questions for me that we're going to go over, from how to learn Photoshop editing, loads of tech questions about different types of software. We've got things about the change in styles and what's in fashion in photography at the moment. So what I've done is I've got them all here. What I should have done is spaced them out evenly so it was like a question to each of us. But no, it's going to be very top heavy and then very bottom heavy, I guess. But I'd like your opinion on all of my questions anyway, because I think it's interesting to have different opinions on the same question, despite who they may be targeted towards. So the first question, which I think is a very important one, which everyone worries about all the time, is, have you noticed a shift in the commercial world and how am I handling it and approaching it? And like the part two of this is it's sort of like, it seems that my style of work is no longer in fashion. But yes, I don't know. Do you have any takes on... I have a very strong opinion of these things, but do you have any takes on these things?
Well, I mean, all things are constantly evolving. You know, there's always something. Somebody will do, like, call it an advert. Someone will do an advert. And then everyone thinks, that's brilliant. Why don't we do that? Yeah. And then everybody jumps on that bandwagon until it's no longer in vogue. Now, we did touch on it on a previous episode with the current kind of kickback against AI-generated advertisements. Yeah. Where even, small 9-year-old boys are saying, I'm bored of that, CG.
Yep, absolutely. And I think like anybody who's looking at adverts at the moment will notice they're all on gold backgrounds and there's a lot of velvet going on. But I'm going to have to take my party hat off. It's reached peak annoyance. We'll pop him here for later. But yeah, so in terms of style, so I started my style of work before there was a market for it. I think.
Yeah, and that was primarily you. This is what I enjoy. This is the kind of things I want to do. I'm going to do this and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm going to continue doing that, is my answer. But with the caveat that things evolve. And it's like clothing. Like I have a certain outfit I like to wear. It's the best outfit in the world. And every few years it changes slightly. You know, we've gone for a slightly different cut of black t-shirt this year to my usual one. We've gone from... I used to get these there was a t-shirt company upstairs and they got organic t-shirts in from somewhere. So I used to wear those, but now we're using Asket, which don't sponsor me, but Asket jeans, Asket t-shirts, which is ASKETT, because I get asked all the time, especially where does this jacket come from? This is a United Colours of Benetton jacket.
Oh, nice.
Which
Remember that was a thing back in the day.
That was a massive thing back in the day. It's wearing well. I've had it for like 5 years, but it's warm in the studio. We can't have the heating on during these because air conditioning. Rob doesn't feel the cold. He'll be in t-shirt all year round.
Literally. I mean, I'm wearing long trousers.
Well, it's like my hands are already numb, despite the heating just being turned off. But yeah, I won't be changing for anybody. But at the same time as I won't be changing for anybody, I will be changing as I evolve. And there's still like ad campaigns being done in a really dated, old-fashioned way. So those photographers still stay in vogue. Yes, I had a really good few years when it was like peak me, but it's not like my style is no longer financially viable. You're right there, just killing yourself with. I
did not plan that at all. Well, I'm not going to lie.
So the next one is, what are you excited about in the industry moving forward, and what am I worried about? Whilst you're fiddling, I'll answer that first.
Yeah, my biggest worry is getting rid of this hat. There we go.
So in terms of what I'm excited about, I like not having a job. Every year I do a tax return and pay my tax, but I'm like, well, this is great. I've done another year of not working. I like to create new things. I've got loads of stuff we're creating next year. We're doing one test shoot a month for 2025, and each one of them is going to be fully documented by Rob over on Studio Access. And they're going to be proper test shoots, not we're filming it for YouTube or for education. It's going to be proper test shoots, proper budgets, proper rationales behind them, and all the stuff that goes well and wrong in it.
Studio Access is the platform for those of you who want a more in-depth look at photography and videography. It's not the quick fixes we share over on YouTube, it's the more in-depth and detailed information that takes longer to put out there. This is looking at behind the scenes on shoots, working with top stylists, assistants and digitechs, right the way through to practical things like security for your camera equipment, how we make sure that we don't get cleared out, looking after your lighting, care of fuses, bulbs, domes, and all of that information that just isn't for most photographers. Studio Access is designed for those who really want to excel in photography, be it as an amateur hobbyist, an artist, or a commercial photographer. It's really for those who want to go above and beyond what's available on the YouTube platform. If you head over to tinhouse-studio.com, you can find Studio Access over there, or the link down below in the comments, as well as in the description for this video.
What I'm not looking forward to next year is the fact that this year's been so bad and a lot of photographers have lowered their value, whether that's delivering more or charging less, and perhaps the expectation that we should be doing that, which I just, if someone comes back to me and the budget's not right, I'll just say no, but I'm in a fortunate position that I can do that. Other people are having to go, yeah, I'm going to have to do that because, bills.
Yeah, and that seems to be a kind of sort of a trend across the board, really.
Yeah, I don't think it's just in photography either. It's like everyone's skins. You were saying that, was it like retail's down massively this year?
Oh, huge, yeah.
I mean, I'm spending less on Christmas this year, despite making the same money, just because I feel poor. I don't know if everyone else feels poor as well. I feel poor.
Yeah, you often feel like that until it gets to the point where, well, I'm paying the same amount of tax, so I must have earned about the same amount of money.
Yeah, it's weird. I know obviously like things have gone up in price, but my earnings have gone up with inflation, thankfully. But I definitely feel poor. Like I start doing things like, I don't know. I pre-booked my train ticket for a night out recently. Whereas in the past, and obviously it's the sensible thing to do, because if I just walk up and get a ticket to London, it's 250 quid. If I pre-book it, it's 150 quid. Like I'm an idiot for having not done that before, but I definitely would have just walked up and gone, I'll just get a ticket. Whereas now I'm like, maybe yes, maybe no.
There's nothing actually wrong with that. I mean, it's, especially when times are tough, it does, and I'm sure everybody does a similar exercise where you think, oh, okay, my energy bill has now tripled.
Oh God, yeah.
Overnight, like that was a shock to the system, because you don't think much of a thing, but when you it's literally 3 times what it used to be. You start looking, right, okay, let's look at everything that's gone out of my bank this month, and what was necessary and what wasn't. Right, where can we start economising? Where we can kind of make savings, and little things like pre-booking train tickets. I, as you know, just had you've seen it for the first time today. My fancy new car,
new motor. Is it the new Jag?
It's not. It's not a V12 Jag. You'll notice there's no oil anywhere outside the building. So for that reason alone, it couldn't be the Jag. And I had to go to from Leicester to Scunthorpe to pick that up.
Yeah.
Now, back to the whole planes, trains, and automobiles kind of trying to get from Leicester to Scunthorpe on a Sunday before 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. in the afternoon is literally impossible. So I had to be up at on a 5 o'clock bus, National Express, which again under £5.
Yeah.
To get me to Derby, to then get a train from Derby to Sheffield, and from Sheffield then to Scunthorpe, which cost me £11.20 pre-booking.
Winner. And you see, I would definitely take that route as well. Whereas I think 4 years ago, I'd have booked a driver just to take me there, or paid for delivery. But now, I'm like, no, got to save the pennies.
Well, they were willing to deliver it, but it was like £180. And I thought, well, that pays for the tax.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to waste that just on not going on a bit of a road trip.
Yeah. Also, I like listening to like podcasts and music when I'm traveling. Although my last train journey back, I was a bit sideways on the train home, so it was a bit I was struggling to get my AirPods in. I've just mentioned the Jaguar. Now I've got to. Have you seen the Jaguar renders or like the fake version of the car?
Yeah, whether it actually turns out anything like that or not.
If it turns out like that and they do a murdered out black version of it, that is an absolute banger of a car. It's like, I don't like electric cars because I like to hear noise, but from a purely aesthetics point of view, I think it looks pretty darn good.
Yeah, but again, it's what's the phrase they use? Like a modern reimagining of the XJS.
It's like the Batmobile.
Yeah,
I thought
it's an XJS with a body kit.
Like if they made a version of that with a V12 engine in it, I mean, I wouldn't buy it because I won't be able to afford it, but I would be interested in it in 20 years' time when I can afford it and the rusting. But there we go. Yeah. Weird year, bad year. Next year is going to be better. Although I remember Pete and I, my agent, were out for drinks last week or the week before last, actually, I'm not sure. And he said to me, he was like, don't worry, Scott, next year's going to be better. And I was like, Pete, we had this conversation last year and look what happened.
It's such a deja vu.
But things are on the up. It's going to be okay. Now, this isn't so much of a question, but I left this in here because I think it's an important one. And it's like, would you mind going for a coffee if I get the chance to be around your area? Now, first of all, as Rob well knows, I never go out for coffee with anybody I don't know well. But
we've never been out for coffee.
We've never been out for coffee. We've been out for beers.
We've been out for beers.
And whiskies and various other things, but never for coffee. But the same with beers and coffee and stuff. I get asked this a lot, like, can we go for a drink? Can we go for a beer? Can we go for a coffee? Can I pick your brains? My answers are always a hard no. And the reason I've kept this in here is not because of my answer, but it's because I want to relate it to everybody else in a way that you can save a lot of time. If I go out for coffee with somebody, say for half an hour, that's an hour of my day with commute either side. That means I get home an hour later, which means I miss bedtime with the kids, which there's a lot of things in there where you have to go, is going for this coffee worth what I lose? And most of the time it's no. And even I get invited to a lot of lunches that I say no to. Most photographers I meet waste so much of their working day going to things they've been invited to just because they're invited to it. Like, oh, I'm going to this event tonight. Why? Oh, so-and-so asked me to go. I'm like, great, what are you getting from it? Nothing. And I've got a deadline, but I'm going. Like, there's definitely a certain amount of freelancers just dicking about, I think. I don't know what you're...
Yeah, I mean, I tend to have one social a month that I attend for independent filmmakers, which is held down at the Phoenix Theatre on the last Tuesday of every month. So they've actually regimented that now, so it's easier for people to kind of arrange their diaries. And that's kind of how I make myself available for people, is that I will be at this every month.
Yeah.
If you want to chat to me, come holler.
Yeah, maybe that's what I should be doing. Like, have a thing like every month I will be here on this day. But at the same time, I think I'm putting out 85-hour work weeks at the moment. So maybe not.
And you have a family to consider.
Yes, kids, dog. Where is the dog? I was on the sofa having a little power.
Having a power nap, bless him.
But yeah, so I think, to answer your question, no, but not because I don't want to. Like, given the choice, I'd go out of coffee with everybody all the time, but I'd get nothing done. And yeah, got to keep that going. But yeah, so next question. Do you still cycle for fun, exercise, mental health, or play any music? I have not rode a bike since I learned to drive because it's too dangerous in this country. It didn't used to be. I used to cycle 30, 40-hour weeks when I was training, but not anymore. You wouldn't get me on a bike for any amount of money. That's not true. I did a bike race a few years ago and I got a little bit overexcited because I got a good result having not trained. I was like, this is good.
Yeah, but they do close roads for that sort of thing. So at least it's a relatively safe
It's
environment.
a rolling enclosure, so you still have head-on traffic.
Oh.
Yes, yeah. You still have the bad kind of traffic in the UK. And yes, no, I don't play any music at all. I know you learned to play guitar or learning guitar. Do you play?
No, well, so I was given a beautiful guitar, a 1973 Les Paul that had been sat in somebody's garage for 30 years. Needless to say, nothing worked, and they asked me if I could fix it up. So we got it all straight. I had to change all of the electrics, basically. Unfortunately, because it'd be nice to keep the originals, but nothing worked. It was just rusted out, done, finished. Got it into completely playable order, and then started having a little noodle, as you do, thinking I was going to be an absolute guitar legend because I'm naturally left-handed. And I think, well, your left hand does all the hard work. Yeah. Although I play guitar right-handed, confusingly, but I am ambidextrous, as you know. And this will may come as a surprise, and to most of the viewers, that after 3 months of irregular noodling, I was not a virtuoso on this thing. And then you speak to the people I'd start to meet along the journey, who I admired as musicians. I thought, oh, they're good. How long have you been playing? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I'm like, man, you've got to put in work to get good at this.
You really have.
And then I turned 40 and bought a camera. And within 5 minutes, I was getting some usable results out of that. I thought, I'm going to do this instead.
Yeah, that's fair enough, I think. I feel like I had a big background in music. I played lots of instruments when I was younger in a very sort of classical way. And it's just so much practice to even be able to sound not horrific.
Yeah.
Whereas a camera is pretty easy. In terms of the technique side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always said I could teach anyone how to operate a camera within 30 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the rest of it is just getting out and doing it then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not the case with a guitar. Although, I think this is the year finally I can say with some certainty that I do want to revisit that because I don't have a hobby anymore.
Yeah, you got too much time. We'll have to get some more work for you. You've got too much time in your hands, obviously. That's the what's going wrong there.
Well, it does help that my new girlfriend lives 2 hours away, so that kind of helps with me having more free time.
That is convenient. Convenient is not the right word, but I don't know. Maybe some people say it's inconvenient. I don't know. I'm like, that's convenient. But yeah. So now this next question: how do I find ad agencies in a smaller market like Canada? I don't know how much you know about this subject, but the crux of the matter is if you want to be a commercial photographer, you need to live in London, New York, Paris, maybe a little bit Madrid. That's kind of it. There are ad agents. If someone's got, well, I shot an advert in this. Yes, there are some, but there's not enough of them to make a sustainable income at a high end. You need to, there's two options. So like I live in Leicester, which is not London. There is no way I can be a commercial photographer here, despite the fact there's probably over 100 ad agencies. They all just do like small little jobs. You have to be better than everybody in one of the major cities in order to compete because you're less convenient. You're not there regularly, so you've got to be really good. So basically, if you live somewhere where there's no work, you've got to pitch for work where there is work. And the only way you stand a fighting chance for that is to be better than the people there.
And also, you signed on to the fact that while you don't live in London, you made a point of getting representation in London.
Absolutely. So, yeah, step one, be really good. Step two, get an agent in the city where the work is, so New York or London. And step three, rinse and repeat. Like, just keep doing it.
It's a hustle.
Like, you can find like small and medium clients in like anywhere. Just use Google. Like go onto Google, put ad agency, PR agency, social media agency. Start opening them all up and just like blitzing through the list. But you can't be a high-end photographer in a market that doesn't have high-end photography, I don't think. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, especially, and again, this back to something I was talking about earlier about changing trends and, the prices of things coming down, the expectations growing. Inevitably, what that means now is shorter shoots.
Yep.
So you can find work coming in at a much kind of faster rate, but it's like now a 1 day shoot instead of a 3 day shoot. And there's so many shoots to rattle through. And again, if logistically they have to move you from one city to another, that straight away becomes a bit of an obstacle.
I mean, even when like I've got an assistant traveling from far off, I'm like, if there's bad traffic, they're going to be late. oh, I don't want to deal with that. We'll just get someone local. Like, apart from Paul, who is, no matter where he has to travel to, he'll be there half an hour early. And you'd assume, like, if he's having to travel 10 times further, he'd be earlier because you'd have to leave. But no, half an hour early. Like,
I'm convinced he parks up at the job the night before and sleeps in his car.
Yeah, he must do. It's like it shouldn't work like that. But there we go. So a bit of a daft question, but very relevant for anyone like me who hates housework. How do I cope with all the dog hair in the studio? My dog, Theodore, is a golden retriever, so there's a lot of dog hair. But for the last 6 years, I think, I've used a robot vacuum cleaner in here.
RoboVac.
Twice a day it goes off and it keeps on top of it. And then a cleaner comes in once a week to do the big clean. The really annoying thing is, so anyone who's watched my videos recently will know there is a sponsor for every single video we create on YouTube now because of the money. Like,
or today, even if that's yourself,
even if it's myself, if I can't find a sponsor, Studio Access is sponsoring it. Like that's the way it's working now because we've just got to work out the money and the time. But the robot vacuum industry has been contacting me for years to do adverts, and I've turned down all of them and bought my own one because I was like, I don't do adverts on my videos. It's not something now we do, so I'm quite gutted that I've paid for one and not been paid for it.
And it's something you do use daily.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, he gets stuck now and again. I think it cost me like £300. But yeah, if you have a flat space without steps and things like that, get a robot vacuum. Just use it twice a day. You still have to clean, but like, yeah.
And you had Moggy before Teddy, remember that?
Oh my God, she was a nightmare for cat fur. Like fur balls just rolling across the studio. And Moggy's still a nightmare at home. Like on the stairs, because she loves being on the stairs. And we've got black stairs and a white ragdoll cat.
Yeah.
Like you get a message going, oh, where's Moggy? Is Moggy okay? Is she all right? Is she all right? I'm like, yeah, she's at home. She's just a very miserable, sassy cat. Her main thing she does is she sniffs the dog and then gags because he's so disgusting. And she tries to assassinate people on the staircase by putting her arm through a banister and like bapping your legs as you go past. That and sleeping on your face. So yeah, she lives a good life.
Oh yes, it's absolute princess.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She faked that she died the other day because her food bowl was empty. So she like laid out with her paws like that really still until I filled a food bowl and then she like
literally
reactivated.
Every cat in the history of mankind ever.
Oh, what a dick. What a dick. But there we go. Right, so could you share some tips on education? How do you learn to use Photoshop and other tools? Like what's your method, Rob?
Okay, well, I suppose firstly, I taught myself to do it. And like all things, that was born out of need because when I started in photography, I wasn't very good at it. So I very quickly had to kind of learn how to fix problems I'd created for myself. And that's a good way as anything because the things born out of need become, I suppose, ingrained and, you do gain some sort of psychological muscle memory for these things. So if you want to, get into Photoshop, now the brush that is Photoshop is an extremely broad area because I know it's become the generic term for everything. Oh, that's been Photoshop, but that could be something as simple as removing a few blemishes or complete background replacements, changing hair. It's a smorgasbord of different editing techniques available within Photoshop, and I guarantee you, there's not one human alive that knows how every single tool works in Photoshop. What you will have, if you speak to Adobe support for any reason, what is your query? What area are you struggling with? Right, we'll point you towards this person who knows that tool inside out because it's so unbelievably broad. But I think the important thing there is not to kind of get too rabbit in the headlights and get overfaced by the amount of tools and the processing and the power of everything that's available to you. I suggest you better to learn 3 or 4 tools very, very well, and that will get you 99% of the work you need to get done just using a few tools and knowing how to use them correctly.
And for a photographer, like myself, what are what's the 3 most important?
The most, above all, is the pen tool.
Yeah.
The power of the pen tool is unparalleled, unmatched. I recently had to interview some graphic designers, and everybody say they can do everything on an interview. Of course they do.
Yeah.
So I thought it was prudent to set a few practical challenges, which proved hilarious later on. And everybody, again, these are people straight out of college, just got their degrees, everything else, So this is part of our module. We've used this. Okay, great. Here's an object. Here's the brief. I would like you to prepare this for any number of adverts. It could be an advert, it could be space in the catalogue, it could be an eBay listing, it could be something for Amazon. So this is what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to isolate that from the background. Go. Every single person was using quick select tools, and not one of them worked properly. Not one of them was anything remotely what I would consider acceptable. And every one of them took longer than just drawing around it with a pen tool. Now, people will come and say, yeah, but what about hair? Now, hair is the most difficult thing probably to get right in Photoshop. And now the tools have got much better for that over time. But understand, even with hair, there's going to be a compromise. So what, in terms of the, I suppose, industry's acceptable technique, because with the best will in the world, if you've got someone against a busy background with floaty, wispy hair, I do not care what you've got. You can't mask around every strand of hair with a pencil. That's just not possible.
No.
You certainly, unless you've got 3 weeks to do this one shot. None of the quick select tools will work properly. Some will get you at least in the ballpark, with the refine edge tool and various sort of masking, dodging and burning on layers with masks and what have you. So there's things that will get you in the ballpark. But most commonly what people will do, and again, time dependent is always a thing, but you'll get that selection as good as you can without having any of it. And then what we will do, we'll make a brush, a hairbrush, if you will, not a physical, but if you create a custom brush for hair and then randomize that in the settings, and then basically you paint in the edges to give the appearance of nice, floaty, perfectly stranded hair, but you're brushing those in and blending that with the original hair. So it will look absolutely seamless, but basically it's refine as best you can and then brushing the edges just to give it that hint of realism.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants Lego hair in an image. That's the thing to remember.
Yeah, hair is a nightmare. I know whenever I mentioned, she's like, "Oh, can we change the background color?" And it's like someone with blonde hair, like being blown around. It's like, no, Scott, no, we can't. Or not, no, we can't, but not quickly.
Not quickly, yes.
Now, one of the questions I've remembered it and I didn't add it originally was like, how can you learn Photoshop quickly without doing like the 10,000 hours to get that skill?
Well, you don't need to do 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours is what you consider you should be professional level Photoshop power user by the end of 10,000 hours.
Yes.
You should have a fairly well-rounded skill set in almost everything that you would need to do. For example, you could ask me, Rob, these gold bars, can we get rid of all the logo on this gold shiny mirror of a thing that I've just given you, change that to this, do the other. Some of that takes a bit. It took me 4 hours to do one shot on that, if I remember rightly. That's a very, very high level thing to kind of do. But as I say, to build the skill set, and this is, I suppose, the important thing, is a methodology rather than this is the exact tool and whatever you use to do it. It's all about working to a method. Is find out what the thing you need to do for an image. For example, could be one of yours. For example, the plinth is starting to look a bit old because it's been painted 1,800 times now of a number of different colours. And right, Rob, so can we smooth the plinth out? So right, okay, what's the most efficient way of looking at doing that? And focus on that one job, and then learn to do that well. And then that skill set is transferable then onto other things. Is that okay? Yeah. So smoothing a plinth is principally the same sort of idea that you would have smoothing somebody's skin or removing pimples and stuff. Okay, so right, so this skill set I've just spent my time learning, I can now transfer to this area, to that area, and then basically start expanding skills. Right, I've got my smoothing game down. What's next? Okay, now we need to do this, and so on. So you work through practical problems that you're facing on the day, and then kind of learn to master those before moving on to the next area. And again, bit by bit, you'll start to expand your skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, there's no shortcut to doing the work, but you don't need, it's like people are like, oh, I need to get perfect at photography before I can be a pro. It's like, no, you learn how to do one thing, start charging, and then increase your skill set. Like, if you wait until you know everything, you'll never do it.
And no one does.
No, especially in Photoshop. And also, like, Photoshop's the weird one where it's like, often we'll have 2 or 3 retouchers working on a big job, and they'll all come back with the same result. For like, say we're doing like, I don't know, was it GoPuff? Yeah. Which was the American job years ago. and I think you might have done some of it. I think Bhavesh did some of it.
Yeah, we kind of split the
And I
duties.
think Sophie Bronze did some of it. And you couldn't tell, but I bet you all three of you did it differently.
Yeah. I know certainly Bav and I work very differently. I remember on the Johnson & Johnson job.
Yeah.
That we were given different things. And again, just little things. And you could see the light bulb go on when I said, just do that. And he's like,
yeah, it's
genius.
Because there's so many ways to do it. So many ways to do it. Now, this question would have been better before that 10,000 hours question. But when do you tell me use a grey background and we'll change the colours? And when do you tell me just use the real colour?
I mean, I was saying, almost never do we use the real colour, other than as a reference palette.
Yeah, or to help in shadow tone.
Yeah, exactly, because you don't want... I mean, grey can give you some really odd muted reflections, which aren't particularly desirable. So normally that's normally a question that you've got very good at asking now, is it right at the start of the job, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like, Rob, this is what we do, and this is what we think we've got to do with it later. The brief from the client is that this capture now will run on several things, Fairy Liquid to name but one, where it's going to be now shot across 7 different colours depending on what they're doing on the day, like the whole traffic light thing. So we need to be ready for that. So we have to have transparency built in. We have to make sure that there's no awful reflections and stuff. So, well, this is how we would do that. So this one would be better, for example, shot on a grey background, because we know that we're going to replace multiple colours. Now, if we say, well, we're going to use only this one colour, not necessarily that exact shade, and we're probably going to replace it because, again, you find yourself where the background's got texture that you don't want, or an undesirable gradient, for example, that wants to be shifted because you've lit the product perfectly, but that isn't necessarily the most flattering on the background.
Yeah.
But it's all about the product at the end of the day. So you make the product the hero, and then the background we can bring in to match later. But now all the reflections and everything else are at least the right colour because you've got that reference plate. And that helps guide you with where the shadow should fall and all these kind of things that you may have to fix, manipulate, and replace. So generally, that discussion should always happen at the start of the shoot, not after you've shot 100 frames. And then, like, what about this?
So wrong.
So, oh, mate, we should have asked me that earlier because I just said this is how.
Yeah, we always speak to whichever, like, we'll either be using either Rob in-house, or we'd use someone like Unit or Tapestry as like a post-production house. And they're always involved at pre-production. Because having the conversation after the shoot is the worst thing a photographer can do. Right, next question for you, Rob. Have you made any custom tools or bits, custom anything, I guess, to use in photography or videography?
Are we talking rigs or are we talking electronic tools?
Oh, either. I have no idea. Either.
So as I mentioned to earlier, I do use custom brushes all the time in Photoshop.
Yeah.
To help speed up my workflow in terms of things in post-production, again in DaVinci Resolve, I build a lot of my own power grades as a baseline.
Yeah.
So that I know roughly I'm in the ballpark, and then it's just a case of tweaking that rather than building, a 23 node tree from scratch every single time you want to do it. I kind of have like a base power grade set up just to make my life a bit easier. So, right, okay, so I've got everything from sort of white balance, highlight, shadows, all set up in their own little nodes. And it's very easy to go in and looking at the image and say, right, what do I need to fix? Right, that's already set up in this node, and away we go, rather than doing it from scratch. And you'd be amazed how much time that can save you, especially when you're trying to like match multiple cameras and stuff. It might be the case that you only need to adjust the contrast and the white balance to bring those two cameras together, rather than doing the whole node tree from scratch. Because I'm quite deliberate, like set everything up in separate nodes, even though you can do it all in one node, and that's perfectly valid. But I do find it's better to have everything separate.
Definitely. And
it's just so much more organized to do that. So those are the kind of things that at least in post-production, I will set up myself. Obviously, we've made audio presets for yourself, so when you're filming on your own, you can just drag and drop that in Fairlight.
Yeah, so often if the audio sounds weird or the grade looks odd, it's because I've selected the wrong one. I've been like flying solo and just like gone, yeah, we'll have this, and it's like the wrong mic. But so that happens.
So it's definitely worth. And again, once you've got to a point, and you've got some. I don't like using the word presets, but you've got some things that you've built again. And I've always said to people, don't just go out and buy a look pack or a look pack or whatever. Learn how to grade and do things properly yourself. You learn a lot more. But then importantly, then moving forward in terms of building the grades for yourself, you understand the methodology behind it, and it does make everything then much faster because you understand what you're doing. If you slap a LUT on it, and you look at it, you've got to try and understand what it's doing wrong. So, well, why are all my highlights blown? Because it's pushing the highlights in a way that you don't want, at least for that image and that shot. It might work on certain things, but not others. And of course, LUTs aren't editable. So you have to put a node before it and try and fix it as much as you can. Whereas it's better to build your own sort of power grades and have all those nodes available to you. So I guess do learn how to do it, build all those separately. Now, in terms of physical tools, I mean, we all jerry rig our things to a certain degree. I mean, my gimbal, for example, there is, if you can believe such a thing, an attachment for that holds an umbrella over the gimbal.
Oh, that's cool.
Should I, and I have faced this. I mean, I remember one of my first video jobs for a festival, which was Barefoot Festival. I believe it was 2018. Absolutely torrential rain.
Yeah.
I was, I'm sure somebody was building an ark there.
Yeah.
It was that rain, and I literally, well, how am I going to get any footage of any of this that isn't inside a tent? So I ended up getting asking one of the marshals for a bin liner, made a very small hole and taped around the ND filter, and basically hid inside it, walking around. So basically, the people saw nothing other than a pair of legs and a bin liner walking around, capturing footage in this torrential rain, which must have looked like the most ridiculous sideshow of anything. But that was the only way I could actually get anything done. So I thought, well, this is bound to happen again. What can we do to this rig to actually protect it and actually, use it like a sane human being? So I kind of had to jerry rig a little attachment with I think it was from my golf kit, actually, the umbrella holder from my golf kit. There's a jerry rig to fit on the bottom of a gimbal, so you could put like a short umbrella in. Again, didn't cover me. I was still getting soaked, but I'll dry out. These cameras,
they don't like it.
They don't like it. I mean, moisture's bad at the best of times, but you definitely don't want to get them wet.
No.
So I've had to sort of jerry rig that, and then the rest of the time it's mostly. I mean, we've all done this. When you buy sort of riggable cameras. You put a cage on it and think, right, okay, now what do I need to use? And, as you can see, all of these have got some sort of rig applied to it. Like, for example, even the one on the gimbal, I use external power, not the one inside, because it's faff trying to take it off.
Yeah.
So we don't need to do that. So that's really fast to hot swap that. So that's really useful. What is normally my main static rig, we've got the follow focus, we've got the shotgun mic and the mount for that. We've got the monitor mount, we've got the top handle, all of these things just to make, because that's how it normally lives its life. Is a static rig. The other one normally lives its life as a gimbal. So you kind of rig them appropriately but differently. For example, this has a V mount on it. The gimbal rig is heavy enough to be carrying around without slapping a 180 watt hour battery on that as well. Yeah. So we stick with MPFs on that, which run for about an hour, and they're nice and easy to fast swap. So we do rig them out, but it's all with, again, available parts. Rods are obviously your friend when it comes to sort of rigging things out yourselves, but just figure out what you want to do. I mean, we actually did the experiment last week with you, didn't we? We kind of stripped your rigs down and tried to make sense of these octopus-like appendages that you had all over these rigs. I don't know if you can see it, but now it's a much simpler setup.
We've got nice. Sometimes you have to start from scratch again. It's like, I've added all this stuff to it, and now it looks like a Christmas tree. Let's just take it all off, bring it back in again, and give it a fresh sometimes adding to things is not the answer.
You've got two ways. So you can work like a painter, where you take a blank canvas and keep slapping things on it till you've got the image you want. Or you can work like a sculptor, where you take a block and you strip it away till the truth is revealed.
Yes.
Thanks to Bruce Lee for that quote.
Yeah. And I must say, I'm pretty pleased with my current setup. It looks nice.
It's not rational. And, we've got a new fancy teleprompter for you.
Teleprompters, I can read my adverts out without getting told off for getting them wrong. So next question after riggage. Back to software. What are your thoughts on Photoshop alternatives like Affinity or Pixel Master? There's a question underneath as well, which I believe is linked. DxO and their Photolab 8 and GIMP, Canva, or all the stuff. What's your opinion on it? And I'll give you mine afterwards.
It's a pretty quick one, to be honest. Now, like all things, all of these are just tools. Okay, Photoshop's a tool. GIMP has always been the kind of accepted freeware, community-based, open source clone of Photoshop, for want of a better way of describing it. And then you've got things like, for example, Canva, which is more built for the kind of modern kind of TikTok fast social media type thing, because it has a lot of overlays and text and stuff, or builders all built in. Now, you can build all of these in Photoshop, but it takes a bit longer to do it because you have to kind of know what you're doing. So all of them are perfectly capable. And I would say to anyone, do by all means try the free stuff. And it all depends on what you're doing and what level you're working at. And I suppose this is where it starts to get important. In terms of the end result, all of them are honestly as capable for the most part now as Photoshop is.
Yeah.
Photoshop is pushing ahead really hard with the inclusion of the AI-driven tools and what have you. And I think Adobe are very much at the forefront of that. But as mentioned earlier, for the most part, they won't give you the result you need in a professional environment. And this is kind of where things start to sort of matter. And the important thing, and this comes back to conversation we've had, and we'll come on to this in a moment. If you're looking to get hired as a retoucher, on set in professional working services, if you don't know Photoshop, don't even bother applying for that job.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, in 99% of professional shoots, you will be expected to be retouching in Photoshop. I think that's almost universally true.
Yeah, it's Capture One for capture.
Yep.
And then Photoshop for edit, like industry standard. If a Digitech turned up and went, I'm using Lightroom, but like, no, mate, no, you're not. And if a retoucher said I'm using anything but Photoshop, you wouldn't hire them. Yeah,
it would be a red flag and would be a barrier to you getting hired.
Yeah, absolutely. Which begs the question, why use anything but Capture One and Photoshop?
Because not everybody's working on professional sets.
Yes. So in my case, for YouTube, for example, I can't use Photoshop. Well, no, I can, but not well. I use Canva for all of my thumbnails because it is infinitely quicker and easier. But if I hired a professional thumbnail designer and they weren't using Photoshop, I'd be concerned.
Yeah.
I think
that's again the level in. It's all down to a lot of things like money. Let's be honest, money's a factor.
Yeah. Especially with Capture One, like Photoshop comes with Adobe Lightroom for free.
Yes. Yeah. If you buy the photographer bundle, which I think is I don't know, £13-14 now. I can't remember exactly what it is, but you get Photoshop and Lightroom bundled together. And for most people, that's all you would ever need.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, again, when now you come into the situation now with your GFX, bigger than full frame Fujifilm cameras, and now with the greater color depth and all these things, now all of a sudden Capture One starts to leapfrog hugely.
I think for anybody, if they've got a camera today and they're using Lightroom, if they upgrade to Capture One, it will almost be as good as buying a better camera. Because it interprets the raw files better, the algorithm behind each slider is better, the color profiles are better. And if you're tethering, it's better.
Yeah, tethering has never been a strong point of Lightroom, I think it's fair to say.
It sucks. But yeah, so yeah, I think if you have no professional aspirations, use whatever you want. If you want to be a pro, Capture One for tether and, grade, and then
again, even if you're working professionally as a solo operator, use what you like. You use whatever works for you. It all depends on the level of client you're working for.
I think, I think if you're working for local companies, do whatever you want. Use Canva to do your editing. Who cares? But if you want to shoot an ad campaign, they want a Photoshop file delivering.
Yeah. And as I say, and then this is all down to where's the delivery.
Yeah.
And that's usually the first conversation we have. You say, right, Rob, got these images for you, need editing. My first question is always, where are they going? If they're going on the gram, that's a different level of edit to, it's going on the side of a bus, or it's going on a massive LED billboard on Times Square.
Yeah.
That's two very, very different things to consider. And that makes a huge difference in the tools that you should be using.
Yes.
And again, not
absolutely.
necessarily in terms of what the file looks like, but again, everybody in the professional advertising agencies will be expecting a PSD file.
Or PSB nowadays.
PSB most commonly. Anything we do with your medium formats.
PSB.
It's, you change one layer, right? It's a PSB now. That doesn't work anymore.
Absolutely. No, speaking of which, next question. What is the best printing house in different countries? Obviously, I have no idea, but there's like 3 places in the UK where you would get your printing done. I'm not going to mention them here because what I don't want is for them to receive hundreds of emails of people who then go, oh, no, I'm not actually going to do it. But it's not difficult to find out. Just ask other pros where they're getting their books printed.
Yeah.
Like most high-end pros will tell you what you want to know. If I message, I don't know, name a pro in my country and say, hey, how'd you get this? They'll tell me. And vice versa. So yeah, we'll leave that question out. I don't know the answer. Next question. We're down to the last few now. Knowing that you don't do much work in London, what is your advice for creatives looking to have a lucrative full-time career in smaller cities? So firstly, I do almost all of my work in London. I'm not sure. I don't live in London, but I do all of my work in London. All of my clients, even if they come here, are either from London or New York. But almost everything we shoot is in London. If you're in a small city, my number one piece of advice would be to move. Doing it the way I did it is not easy, realistic, or likely, I think is the best way to put it. And people are like, oh, you did it without moving to London. Would not advise.
Yeah, what they didn't see was the 120 plus hour weeks and years of that and sleep deprivation and everything that went along with it.
No, exactly. Like, if you're serious about this industry, move to London. Or if you're in America, move to New York. And if you're anywhere else, move to London, I think.
Yeah, it's like trying to be an actor anywhere other than Los Angeles in America.
I know. I don't get the whole thing. It's like, wow, there's all these big brands here. It's like, great. There is I won't name the brand, but there's a major brand whose headquarters are near my studio. I've been trying to work for them for years. And then I ended up shooting for them because they booked me through my London agent in London. And we all traveled to Paris together to shoot it in Paris, despite the fact my studio, which was better equipped than the one in Paris, I can see their building from here. But people want a London photographer and they want to shoot it somewhere cool. So yeah, it's move, just move. Like, if there's a reason you can't move, then brace yourself for, like you say, 100 plus hour work weeks for many years, lots of networking, lots of traveling to these places. It's not as bad as it was pre-pandemic, but I'd like, given my time again, I'd move to London if I could do it all again.
Yeah, it certainly would help fast track you.
Oh my God, I'd be so many years ahead of where I am now. Now, Rob, this next and final question, I don't actually know what it means. So I'm hoping you do.
Let's find out. Let's find out together, I guess.
Is Rob a 1%er with Sons of Odin MC?
Oh,
is that a biker gang thing?
It is, and I'm sad to say no, I am not.
Yes, I thought that might be the case. No. Can you ride a motorbike?
I can ride a motorcycle, yes. I have a full license.
Have you ridden a motorcycle?
I have in fact ridden a Harley down the strip in Vegas.
Oh, brilliant. That's what we like.
Which was endless fun. Now, for practical reason, now you were saying how dangerous it is to ride a bicycle. Can you imagine riding a motorcycle in the UK now?
Yeah, I would not do that.
It's, I feel much happier with a cage. I love motorcycles. I think they're absolutely beautiful bits of engineering. I mean, as you know, I don't wear digital watches. I've got good old-fashioned mechanical watch.
Yeah.
I just love the engineering and everything that goes into them, especially the sort of the customs that, the Harleys with the V twins and just everything just on it. It's just monolithic and they're just gorgeous. But for practical reasons, I can afford one thing to transport me about with.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get all of my gear, tripods, light stands, and everything that I need to on the panniers on a motorcycle.
Yeah, no, that's not going to be
so
the one.
So unfortunately, we've had to go more practical with four wheels. But no, much love and respect for those guys.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I would not ride a motorbike. I used to ride motorbikes when I was younger. In various countries where I didn't need the license over in Asia, and it was incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, but that's kind of their thing because cars are a relatively new thing out there.
Yeah, they're super hard to get hold of.
They've had like scooters and bikes for
forever. But yeah, there we go. So that's us wrapping up the Christmas edition this year. Thank you very much to everybody who's been listening. There'll probably be a gap in the podcast over that quiet period in the new year, just because I don't think anyone's going to listen to it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
We will find out. But the podcast will be back. There are 12 episodes in this season, so we're very excited. Or it'll be 13 including this, because this is a non-sponsored one.
Sponsored by your good self, honestly.
Sponsored by Studio Access. But yes, apart from that, it's this is a bonus one. So 13 episodes in this season. So good times.
Hopefully lucky for some.
Yes, and we're already working on funding for season 3, which is stressful, but there we go.
Well, stressful for you, and honestly, because
it's stressful.
I don't really get involved in that side of the business.
It's I will do all the lovely negotiating with brands and all that horrificness. But there we go. That's where we're at. But yes, thank you very much. We'll see you all soon. Have a great Christmas.
And happy holidays.
Oh yes, happy holidays to all.